welcome to my Lost Ark review from a MMO player's perspective. Now, I know that an MMO player's perspective can be a few different things, so first let me explain my own take on what I mean and where I'm coming from, as I think there are many MMO players out there like me, just as there are some who are on a different mindset, and I'll speak on that as well. My MMO mindset is that of someone who enjoys more aspects than just gear chasing or racing through content. I am the slower, chilled MMO player who enjoys, amongst other things, exploring, crafting, deed or achievement chasing, hobbies, questing, whether that be main story or side quest. I enjoy chasing after sought after items as well, but I spread my playtime out, amongst many other things, and I'm never the first to complete any raids. My mindset is, I'll get to it when I get to it. Now, just because that's my mindset, doesn't mean that I dislike or disapprove of anyone else who chases that carrot. The great thing about MMOs is the freedom and ability to play a massively open world at your own pace, and that might take many months, or even years. I'm okay with a game capturing my mind and time for months on end. The games that have been my favorite games to play is when I know I have reasons to log in, and how quickly the day passes while I while away the hours trying to work towards something. So, with that in mind, let me tell you why I'm not a huge fan of Lost Ark from that perspective. I happen to think Lost Ark is a very good game for what it is. Now, that's not a backhanded compliment, and the game definitely surprised me, and I'm very happy it's successful. However, the director's cut of the trailer mentioned the term MMO quite a bit, and while I agree you can call it an MMO by definition, it's not what I call a real MMO because it doesn't check off all those things that make a game feel like a real MMO to me. Again, this is my opinion. While yes, it has servers with lots of people playing in a shared space, and it has raids and dungeons, and a large story arc, and crafting and housing, and some neat side distractions, it's the implementation and lack of freedom to do many of these things at will that makes it not feel like a real MMO to me. So let me explain. So on any given day, I can log into what I deem a real MMO, and I can make a choice to do one thing for my entire playtime, whether that be an hour or 10 hours. If I want to go fishing in ESO or WoW Classic all day, I can fish all day. If I want to go gather or craft or do something in housing in Lotro, I can do those things uninhibited without a meter or energy to limit what I do. I'm not funneled toward completing the main focus of those games. The main focus of Lost Ark is tiering up. This is fine and especially nice for those who enjoy progression gear leveling. I think the way Lost Ark does the tiers is pretty good, and many MMOs could take note here, but for a game to feel like an MMO to me, it has to be open and not limiting. I also prefer big open worlds where I need a map to not get lost. While many games offer up zones with load screens, they still don't feel nowhere near as claustrophobic as Lost Ark does with its isometric playstyle. Even with having places where you venture off the grid into blackness to find secrets, it's still a poor substitute for an open world that's vast. The word massively might have different meanings to many different players, but to me it describes not just a player count, but how big the world feels. Part of that for me is also lore. How deep is the lore? Does the environment reflect the lore? Many people have said Lost Ark's graphics are crap. I disagree. I think they're very stunning and rich with detail, especially for an isometric game, but the zones feel disjointed and doesn't make me feel like I'm in one large world with a binding lore, but instead it's like I'm going into different games at times. Watch a Twitch streamer playing Lost Ark for a few hours, and if you leave the room for too long and come back, you will think they are playing a different game. Now, don't get me wrong, variety's nice, and I really appreciate the outlandish scenarios you find yourself in, and I think there's so much good here, but while playing it, I wasn't ever thinking how long I would be sticking around in the game playing it, but how awesome it would be to see some of these other features put in other games. And that's kind of my whole point on playing Lost Ark. Within a few days, I was already at the point to where I was okay stepping away and going back to my dailies on other games or partaking in events that they're running. This game did not capture me like a true MMO does. Even a crummier MMO that does not hold my attention long will keep me going a few weeks to a month before I see faults that prevent me from enjoying myself. Now, this game has obviously caught many gamers' attentions and held it longer than it has me, and to them I am very happy. Play the wheels off this game, but you're not who this video is aimed for. I'm looking at those who are longtime players of their favorite MMO who log in almost daily to the same game, who spend a weekend trying to finish up some fishing deed, or who are slaving away on their upteenth alt. I myself am an altaholic, and even that system in Lost Ark, although voluntary, is not my cup of tea. I don't feel any sort of connection to my character, and the leveling up never made me feel like I was truly growing. I feel like the skills I got and the way I killed mobs at level 25 was pretty much the same at level 50 and beyond. Sure, I got more powerful and might have swapped some stuff around, but the character growth I love from games like Lotro, WoW, ESO was simply not there. In Lost Ark, I've taken fewer screenshots of my character than I have ever, and ultimately that's because I simply just don't care and I'm not involved in my character. Speaking of combat, I gotta say I enjoyed it. Well, at least until I was in my 40s. Then it was just so much of the same old thing. Every game you play has rotation, sure, but other games with more skills and more options do not get as stale, at least to me. And for the most part, I only used more than 2 skills simply because I was waiting on skill cooldowns. Otherwise, I would have used the same 2 skills for everything that I really enjoyed using. The last thing I want to touch on before leaving is my comparison to the community of Lost Ark to most games I've played. Some games have stupid toxic communities, and in fact, many do. However, the MMOs I play the most have pretty good communities. Lost Ark seems to have a mostly non-existent community. I mean this in terms of helping one another out more than anything. I would see questions come up in chat and many were answered, and then you also had the thing where people were trying to get 50 friends and they were pretty helpful with that. But many were not, and even on Reddit I experienced a lack of helpful players there. When I grouped with randos in dungeons, no one really spoke much. It was just clear and go, clear and go. Most would choose to skip cinematic moments, almost making you feel guilty for wanting to experience the story, despite the blandness of the lore and story at times. I say this even from the first couple of days when you just knew many people had not seen these stories yet. Overall though, I felt like I was playing a solo game with people yakking in the next room instead of feeling like I was part of an inclusive community. This for me does not make me want to play because one of the things I enjoy is feeling like I'm part of a vibrant game world, and it's the players that add that for me. Even if I'm not always someone who interacts with others or roleplays, it's something I want present in an MMO. It is also one of the things I have not really seen addressed by many players in reviews for the game. I honestly think that outside of popular streamers who are interacting with their audience, there is very few social elements of Lost Ark, which to me is the icing on the cake of why I think this game is not a true MMO, and why if any of my MMO friends ask me if they should play, I'm gonna give them the same heads up. Sure, play it if you think it might scratch an itch, and pay what you want, whether that be nothing or $15 to $50. I paid for the $25 version, and I definitely feel like I got my money's worth, but I wouldn't pay monthly for a game where I can't play as I want, and that is where I believe things. Enjoy what you enjoy.